Without bodhrán makers, there would be no bodhrán players. And since the drum's growth in popularity during the 1960s in Ireland, the construction of the bodhrán has gone on a remarkable journey of evolution. What once may have been a simple process involving a hoop of wood and a piece of animal skin is now unquestionably a highly refined art. But how did we get to this point? I'm Rory Glasheen, I play bodhrán, and I've long been curious about the secrets of bodhrán making, which is quite the enigmatic practice. So, do you have some skins we could have a look at?
I have a lot of skins you can look at.
Should we have a look at some skins? Or is that top secret?
I keep saying yes and I don't show him the skins.
I'm kind of like...
He's asking the secrets now.
In this third part of my bodhrán documentary, we will unpick the development of the drum's construction and meet the unsung heroes, the craftsmen responsible for quite literally building a tradition. Through decades of devotion, they've mastered not only the tools of the trade, but also the intangible, the heart and soul of the bodhrán's essence. So, let's begin. During the 20th century, the act of building bodhráns evolved into an art, following the drum's transition from household object to musical instrument. As the instrument found its voice in the Irish music scene of the 1960s, the bodhrán surged in popularity, and the process of building the drums was refined for optimized sound and durability. From the old handmade skin trays, presumably used to imitate European tambourines for the wren hunt on St. Stephen's Day, to the carefully designed and lovingly produced bodhráns we have today, the drum has come a very long way in quite a short time. Up until this point, there were a few drum makers making tambourines and bodhráns in Ireland. Sonny Davy from Sligo was a well-known and respected maker, reportedly making his first drum in 1917. You can see Sonny's signature black stripe around the drum's rim as he's playing in this lovely clip from around 1974.
We're now getting to the great Sonny Davy, which is a great bodhrán player that made an awful lot of bodhráns.
Hello, how are you doing? I'm delighted to meet you again.
Well, great, Sonny. Nice to see you again. You sold me a great bodhrán one time. That's beyond in America somewhere. Upstate, I think that went. You still making them?
I'm still making them all the time, yeah.
Yes. And what do you make them out of, Sonny?
I make them out of goat skin. I buy the goats up in the mountains and I make the hoops myself.
Up until the 1970s, drum making was much more individualised, with sporadic cases of people building their own drums, like Eamon Doolan, who made his own drum in 1951 for the first Fleadh Ceol na hÉireann, and other self-builders like Peadar Mercier of the Chieftains in the 1960s, and in that spirit, Peadar Ó Riada, the son of Sean Ó Riada, who popularised the bodhrán in the 1960s, who shared with me how he made all of his own bodhráns throughout the 1960s and 70s.
My father was doing a play in 1959 for Brian McMahon. He was in charge of music at the time in the Abbey Theatre.
Was that safe?
Yeah. And there was Straw Boys in that play, so Brian asked Sean if he could produce the music and dancers for that. So Sean used the bodhrán that time. And he got, through Brian, he got to know an old farmer in Listowel who was used to make bodhráns. We had a craft shop at home and he decided that it would be good to make, when my mother and him decided we could make bodhráns. So myself and a local lad that I was friendly with, he took us down to Listowel to meet your man. And he showed us what to do, skin the animal and put it on the frame. And he was using sieves for sand, you know, which already had the handles in them. That was why it was handy. By 1970, 71, we had grown out of it and we'd other fish to fry.
There are, of course, many others, so in my research for this documentary, one name was consistently present as I tried to unpick the timeline of events.
I always thought Charlie made the best ones. I was very influenced by Charlie Byrne.
My first bodhrán I bought off Charlie Byrne, and I paid 20 quid for it. And I had that drum for years.
This is a Charlie Byrne.
That's a Charlie Byrne?
That's original, no.
Wow.
He would have been the one that changed my whole life and made me into, you know, what I am today.
But who was Charlie, and how did he become the most celebrated and influential bodhrán maker in Ireland? I met with Donnchadh Gough, who knew Charlie well, and he has what is probably the largest collection of Charlie's drums.
There's another Charlie drum. 3, This is the one I got in 1990. That's the very first one I had.
God, that's beautiful, isn't it?
A bit of emulsion paint and it just deepened the tone slightly of them. I'd love to hear that one again now. That was before tape. The first time I got a Charlie Byrne's Bodhrán was in February 1990. I was 15. So since then, I've been playing Charlie Byrne's Bodhrán. I suppose my go-to Bodhrán is the Charlie. The first time I met him, we drove to the house in Thurles. My father drove me up to get the Bodhrán. And it was a great welcome. Himself and Peggy were great characters. But I remember just going into the back of the house and the bags of Bodhráns, big sacks, they're like coal sacks full of Bodhráns. And there's nothing like being able to go to a Bodhrán maker's house and pick a Bodhrán, go through 30 Bodhráns and say, that's the one I like.
Johnny Ringo McDonagh, credited for being one of the pioneers of Bodhrán playing, also remembers Charlie fondly.
He was a genuine, what I call a genuine Bodhrán maker, in the sense he'd go out and he'd shoot the goat, skin the goat, do all the thing, make the rim, the whole lot, right? Some of the best Bodhráns I got of him were male goats, which were very thick skins. Take a while to break them in, but when you do, the sound is amazing. And the thing is, they smelt bad, right? So you could never get rid of the smell. I tried putting oils on it, lavender oils and different things. All I was doing was falling asleep when the Bodhrán gets warmed up, you know. And the next week the smell would be back again and I just gave up. But he would never show me the recipe, you know, his way of curing. He never showed it to me anyway.
Whilst Charlie was hugely respected and admired, he was quite enigmatic about his approach and process to making Bodhráns.
There's lovely Bodhrán too.
I met with Charlie's grandson, Dennis Byrne, and his son, also a fantastic Bodhrán player called Charlie, to find out more.
Pictures that a lot of people wouldn't have seen. Actually, Charlie Byrne working, putting Bodhráns together in his workshop in Clabana Terrace in Thurles. And you can actually even see in this picture here, he's putting studding down a goat skin onto a rim. And his hammer, if you look really closely, you can see the hammer is so old that it's broken and he's still using it. That's the sort of way he would be. Nothing would get thrown away. And I think that overalls, I think he had that nearly all his life. So I can't remember him not wearing anything else. But he was very meticulous on some of the materials he would use. You know, his clamps, that's a very, very good picture of him there, clamping down the rims. He had the formwork done as well. And doing his own steaming. Now, in the early years, he did do this in Thurles. In later years, he moved back to his home farm in Kilkenny to do this. A picture of him there, off hunting goats. And he was a wily man for hunting goats. I think sometimes he enjoyed that more than actually making the Bodhráns himself.
Charlie was actually a box player, so I was curious to find out how he first got interested in making Bodhráns.
He formally only started making the Bodhráns because of his daughter Carmel. Carmel was in her early teens and she actually broke the kitchen cupboard door by playing it as a drum. And his wife Peggy said, will you ever go away and just make her a drum of some sort? Which he did. Carmel, being a very, very good all-island player, they were able to develop the Bodhrán into the way it could be sold.
This is a great Bodhrán. Good thick. What you said to me inside, I knew the minute you said it. Because nearly everyone now, well, the people that come here, well, they're all a kind of music people and they're going to play. But you see young lads on the street and people buying them for their young lads, they don't know like the type to get.
Yeah.
Beginners. The people that come here want them to play with music.
Yeah.
Well,
right.
they'll all look for a thick skin, a good strong skin. I'm all now.
The real thing he was working on then, not so much the rim, was how to work the skins. And when we talk about the skin, it wasn't him just going buying a skin. He would go hunt the goat with the permission of farmers or even the local county councils. He'd go up the mountains and he'd cull the goat with the gun. And then he'd de-skin the goat and then he'd treat the skins with lime, etc. So he did the whole process.
I'll show you those ones now. Here. There's lovely Bodhrán too. It's kind of a bit of blood in it too. That was one that wasn't blade. That's only blood. The blood in and every animal, that's a good skin. Like. Wow. It's a real good skin. See, it's thicker in places. It's a great skin. That's 19 inches. That's for Aladdin Cork. Isn't that nice? Aladdin Cork's come next week. That's made from a racehorse skin.
Wow.
He was from the horsing, and originally he was a jockey, a horse trainer, and then he was a blacksmith, and that was basically his occupation. He used to do that. Very, very small man, but you can see him here on an absolutely gigantic racehorse. He had absolutely no fear when it came to racehorses. Physically, as he moved on later, past 50 years of age, it was physically intensive. Whereas, and he could be travelling all over Munster to do that. Whereas he could do the Bodhráns in his workshop and work away. Now, the downside we found with him with that, it would be not unheard for him to spend 14 hours a day in the workshop. Very, very much old school. Very, very hard upbringing back, born in 1922. So, brought up in a farm basically up in the hills of Kilkenny, and it was a hard upbringing.
In addition to his work ethic, Charlie and his wife Peggy were renowned for their hospitality, welcoming people from all over the world who made the pilgrimage to Thurles to buy a Charlie Bodhrán.
This was sent through to his house probably about a month or two after, in 1986. His daughter Nuala opened the envelope for him, and there's a picture of John Denver playing quite clearly one of his Bodhráns with a beater made by Charlie Byrne as well. And she said, well, what are you doing with a John Denver picture? Why has he got one of your Bodhráns? Oh, that's the nice American man that was here during the summer. There's numerous pictures here of people from all over the world. And of course then the purchasing process, if you didn't come to the house, it was a process of letters, postage, everything like that. Not like the internet now, press a button, Amazon, it's here 2 days later. And of course, it was a double act. Him and his wife, Peggy, she was very much, once you got to the sales side, you were then dealing with Peggy. He was far too busy manufacturing Bodhráns.
Peggy Byrne looked after the business side of Charlie's Bodhrán making operation and also made Bodhrán bags out of recycled tent canvas, which they both collected from the Féile, a large annual music festival held in Tipperary throughout the 1990s.
When you went to purchase at the house, you weren't going to a shop. You were going to someone's old Irish house in a town in Munster in Ireland in the 70s and 80s. And you were getting a cup of tea, and if you were there long enough, you were getting a dinner. And it was not too unheard of to be 6-7 hours at least purchasing a Bodhrán.
I see one of this timber I told them they don't ever steam. I told them there's a bigger one still, that's a lot of money. Yeah. There's a bigger one too, there's a bigger one still. You wouldn't sell much of them. There's an extra good skin on there. There's some Bodhrán, look at that. Not lovely. I told them they had a river stream in it.
These snapshots from another time offer us a glimpse of a master craftsman at work and are all memories remembered fondly by Charlie's daughter Nuala.
And they're great memories. They're great memories. I look back now even on all these pictures and I'm absolutely astounded. He was amazing in the manufacturing of these Bodhráns because he had hands. As for his fame, people would come from everywhere and the house would be full of music. They all came from around the world into that little house below in Mitchell Street, a simple little house. But look, it was everything. And it's where he was happy. On all the photographs, if you notice, this man is a man at work. Do you notice that? That was him every day, And it's great to have had him in so many pictures at his work. And especially this one. He was being very bold there. That's as old as Methuselah, this brown hat, and he always wore that hat. I have that hat at home, and I have it on the banister of the stairs, and there it is, and there it's staying. It's old, it's shabby, but do you know something? It's him. He passed away in the end of November 2007, and we were coming up on December. And it was hard coming to Christmas without him, which I have to say is very true. And lo and behold, this boy was born at the end of December coming to January, and the first day home from hospital, you come in for Daddy's month's mind. You know the month's mind? And this little baby came in, and Dennis and Sandy said, we're calling him Charlie. And it sort of took the sting out of his loss. It was warming our hearts. And I'm so proud of him. And Daddy would love to know he is keeping the tradition going.
I've had people come up to me and say, is that a Charlie Byrne drum? And they don't know who I am. I explain to them and they're amazed. It's amazing like how much people know the name and they appreciate the quality of the drums.
I now know he was a legend, but at the time growing up with him, I knew he was busy and people knew him, but you didn't. You get older, you see it different, you know. I look back on it and I'm even amazed talking about it as it is.
Charlie's impact on the tradition was huge, with many of the makers today taking inspiration from his drums, including Brendan White, originally from Youghal in Cork, who now lives and works in the Netherlands.
This is where I make them.
Oh my God. This is where all my Brendan White barons are made.
Yeah. I always thought Charlie made the best ones. The reason I liked his barons is they were also very strong barons, and they'd last long. They'd last you, you know?
Yeah.
And that's where the heavy skin came in. That's when I realised that the sound was the heavy skin, but also because they were non-tunable, they wouldn't go loose so quick.
Brendan was amongst the first wave of makers to pioneer and experiment with tuning systems on the baron, meaning that depending on the temperature and humidity of the environment, the skin's tension can be adjusted accordingly. When roughly did that kind of start with the tuning?
I'd say 76 maybe, 76 or so.
Christ, that's early.
It was early, yeah.
After a period of experimentation, Brendan established his own tuning system, which to this day he still implements on his drums, with tunable drums becoming the preference with both beginner and established players alike. But at that point was the kind of the demand continuing to...
It was getting crazier and crazier, and I couldn't keep up with it.
So crazy. It's not just growing, it's like...
It was booming. It started booming.
The 1970s saw an explosion in the popularity of traditional Irish music and baron playing, with artists like the Chieftains and Christy Moore reaching mainstream popularity at home and abroad. Brendan's drums have been incredibly popular from this period, like the better part of 5 decades, though despite the universal popularity, Brendan is uncompromising about quality, and specifically sound.
I prefer the old sound. The old sound, that was as important to me, try to keep that sound as what the baron looked like. This is how I put it in there now, like that. And the hammer.
The rings, so this is to make it lighter, not for extra resonance, or does it give a little bit of extra resonance?
Does.
Is that?
Yeah.
Because acoustically, that's going to give you a little bit more.
I did it for just hollow. It was just hollow, but there was no holes in it.
Yeah.
First I had it solid.
I see.
Do you understand?
Yes.
And then I thought, hey, if I could make holes in it, I could make it a bit lighter.
Yeah.
And then there was a guy from theatre. He came down here from Rotterdam, some orchestra or something. And he said, that's a brilliant idea. And he bought the Bodhrán and went off. And he came back and he said, it does make a difference acoustically.
And then we kind of get to skins. This is where it's serious business. We're talking about goat skins. I mean, what makes a good skin, Brendan?
Goat skin is layers.
Okay.
You can scrape it off like blotting paper.
Right.
Do you remember you could take off one layer, another layer until there's nothing. Whereas the other skin, the other animals are all one piece.
So, do you have some skins we could have a look at?
I mean, skins you have.
Should we have a look at some skins? Or is that top secret?
I keep saying yes, and I don't show him the skins.
I'm kind of like...
He's asking the secrets now. I happen. He's a big one.
Traditionally, skins were cured in animal manure, with different animals giving the finished skin a different characteristic. A lime and water solution is also commonly used, with makers developing and refining a combination of these techniques to patent their own cures. That's so interesting, like Brendan, you were saying, like this one.
It could be a good Bodhrán, and at least you have the backbone in it.
Yeah.
For some of them you don't.
Yeah, that's got a lot of character, that one. That's unreal. After the skin is cured and dried off, it's soaked in water for an hour before being attached to the rim, the position of the spinal stripe affecting the eventual sound and resonance of the drum.
The backbone is not centre.
Okay.
Johnny McDonagh always recommended that, off middle.
Finally, the skin is attached to the drum using specially altered tacks to ensure that they don't protrude from inside the rim.
Better for you.
This Bodhrán is now complete, but what does Brendan hope for the future of Bodhrán making?
I hope it keeps going. If it keeps going the way it is, it stays part of the music. I hope the music in itself doesn't change. That would be more of a worry.
I suppose it's almost like, you know, you have that pure version at the core, and then from there are layers of different influences and changes and things that are happening, but that the purity of it hopefully stays in some kind of form, almost like a crystallization at the heart of the tradition. As Bodhrán players, I feel we walk a fine line between honouring what came before and innovating along with the ever-changing and increasingly technified world we're living in. It's hard to believe that so much change has happened in the last 50 years, and Seamus O'Kane, a master Bodhrán maker and player, first heard the Bodhrán on a recording in 1968, a time where there were only a handful of Bodhrán makers in Ireland.
There was only about 4 makers in the country at that time anyway. I hadn't even seen the Bodhrán before I started making them. But whenever I heard good players, you know, and I would try and keep the sound in my mind, and then try and reproduce that.
As most of the best Bodhrán players at the time were playing Charlie Bodhráns, this sound became a reference and starting point for Seamus in developing his own craft and approach to Bodhrán making.
I was experimenting with everything, you know, adding bits, all kinds of tape and bandages and pieces of metal sometimes, pieces of rubber, all to change the sound. But I was learning all the time, you know.
Whilst the Bodhrán is maybe the most recognisable drum of Ireland, the lambeg is also played in parts of Ulster, particularly for unionist marches and events. The lambeg looks like a large marching bass drum, but the thinner skins and long malacca canes used to strike it produce a sharp, almost piercing sound. Lambeg makers are highly skilled at curing skins, and since 1975 Seamus has used these to make his Bodhráns.
Since I got the skins from lambeg drum makers, they are absolute experts on curing skins, because sometimes it's been in the family for 200 years, you know, and they know all the modifications. Some of them are very secretive, but some are very open about it, and You learn a lot that way. It is like a cultural cross, a step forward.
The lambic skin is unique in that the recipes for curing are handed down from generation to generation, often within families, even though much of the selection process of suitable skins comes down to experience.
Well, there's at least 50 different breeds of goat. I know immediately on looking at a skin that it's going to be good or bad, and I know looking at it that it's going to be just absolutely perfect.
Early on in his work on barons, Seamus also experimented with ways of further moderating the distinctive lambeg skin sound.
I met an old jazz drummer. He had just a ring of plastic that he sat on the drums, and it was like this. And I had already been using masking tape to do that, because I knew that it changed the sound. I met Ringo McDonagh, and he put electrical tape on his.
You see that now? This is a drum I made myself. That's it's over 40 years old, right? But and that's a Charlie Byrne skin. You see there where that was the start before you had these tapes, right? I was putting tape across here, and I discovered the more you put on, the deeper the drum was getting, and the less of a ring and all that, So, and then one day, out of the blue, I just decided to put tape on the drum, right? To see how it would work if you went around this way. And I think I was looking at like tablas, where they had a rubber in the middle, the center part. I was thinking about that. I went from doing the tape like that to doing this kind of thing, putting on electric tape.
The taping of drums has probably been one of the most significant developments in baron making, and certainly one of the most distinctive in terms of what the drums sound like. But skin and tape isn't the only aspect which influences the drum's sound.
Just warm it up here. To me, it's important that whenever I hit the skin, that the shell vibrates. The shells are in tension, that one layer's trying to break free from the other layer. Suppose you're using a guitar and the string is loose, it doesn't vibrate, but if it's tight, it vibrates. And that's really the theory of it. I make absolutely everything myself. Sound.
So what happens next in the story of how the baron is made and produced, we shall have to see. From the humble skin trays and tambourines used for drumming in Ireland to the masters of craft who have paved the way for the baron's prominent role in the music of Ireland, and without whom the tradition of barons certainly wouldn't be so vibrant.
Look at them there now, look at them there now, you come in. Look at anything, have a look at you notice what yourself will want. Now, you're the man, listen. This is what you will want yourself. You can take down, look at anything at all, you're welcome to anything at all is there. It's just what you will want yourself, and I'll help you to pick.
So I hope you enjoyed this third part of the real story of the Irish baron, and you can check out the fourth part of the series over here, which explores the evolution of baron playing and how style has changed over the decades.